What up? This is the Twice Over Film Club, and I'm your host, Faraz. Today we'll be talking about Minari. Remember that our full episodes do contain spoilers. If you have not seen the film yet, we do suggest you watch it first. Also, check out thetwiceover.com and see movies we've already done and how they stack up in the different elements. Recent episodes include AI, Artificial Intelligence, The White Tiger, The Florida Project, Michael Clayton, City of God, and many more. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast wherever you listen so you never miss an episode. Next week, we'll be doing Judas and the Black Messiah, and you don't want to miss that. You can follow us at The Twice Over on all the socials to stay up to date on everything, and if you have a movie suggestion for us, let us know. Okay, so time for Minari with myself, Fahad, and Yusuf. Fahad, Yusuf, what's up, guys?
What up?
Hi, how are you guys?
Let's talk about this movie.
I'm a little bit not depressed, just a little, I don't know, mellow today, I guess.
Is it because Farhan's not here?
Yeah, that's exactly why, actually. Prayers up to Farhan, who is not that sick at all, but anyways, prayers up anyways. No reason we can't.
Yeah, no, he's all right. He's just, I know the second dose is always worse.
That is what I hear.
Yeah.
I mean, the second of anything is always worse. The second movie in a trilogy is always horrible. So,
debatable.
You know?
The GOAT trilogy before Sunset would disagree.
The GOAT trilogy, The Dark Knight would also disagree.
Yeah, that would also
but
disagree.
Let's not talk about goats, you know?
All right. Yeah, today we're going to be talking about Minari, a 2020 film, 2021 film, depending on where you live. It's an A24 production. It is a English language / Korean language film. Fahad, you're the one who really wanted to watch this one. I knew about it, but I didn't know much about it. What have you heard about it?
It's not that I really wanted to watch it. It just came across my radar as a movie that was highly reviewed. I saw it on Letterboxd. I saw it on Rotten Tomatoes. It was making a few lists of must-watch movies of 2020.
Yeah.
Wanted to check it out.
Now, are you guys fans of the A24 productions?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, most of their movies are hits, right?
I feel like they've gotten pretty big over the last 5 years or so.
I've seen a lot of their movies, and I don't think I'm not a person who generally knows the production companies and recognizes, oh, they're the ones that did this or anything.
Yeah.
But at some point you keep seeing that come across your screen and it sticks somewhere, right? So like if you go through the movies that they've done in the past, let's say 5 years, I mean, the list is getting pretty outstanding at some point, right? So going back to 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years, they did Room, which was very well received. They've done Ex Machina, that was them, I think, right?
Yeah.
Moonlight, I think they were involved in The Lighthouse as well. Faraz, if I'm not mistaken, they're the ones that put out the Florida Project as well, which we did recently.
Yep. First Reformed, which we've also done. Lady Bird. What else did they have? Oh, they had The Lobster. I feel like that's the first movie I remember watching from this production company. And Yusuf, you're totally right. Production companies is not something I think about when I think about movies. But the thing that's different about A24, I feel like a lot of their movies, they definitely fit into a certain bucket, don't they?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And so just if you're asking me what I think about them, just based on the movies that they've done, I mean, I have to say my opinion of them is pretty positive. I'm sure I could find a list of movies that I love for every production company, but just at a glance, I'm like, wow, I'm impressed, So that's pretty much summarily what I think, because I don't know much beyond that, but I gotta say I would have a positive opinion of them. Fahad?
Yeah, I'd agree. Positive opinion on them. Is there an overarching theme to their movies? I don't think so, but they just seem to pick movies and storylines that just work, right? They usually find some obscure story to work on.
They feel more indie to me.
Risky.
Yeah.
They definitely do, yeah.
So they're simple storylines. The production budgets usually aren't that large either. So they're really focused on the narrative, generally speaking, to carry the movie.
I think one of my favorite films from this production company was Moonlight back in 2016. That might have been one of their earlier ones, right?
Approximately, yeah. I'm going through their list. Looks like they started in 2013. Spring Breakers was their first, I would say, big one.
Okay.
And then, yeah, Ex Machina was also big. Yeah, we talked about Room.
Yeah, but they've come into the fold probably 2015, 2016 and
Yeah,
onwards.
I mean, obviously, if you win Best Picture, right, you're definitely made it.
Yes,
Right.
especially when you win under the controversy that Moonlight did win, with fumbled awards and all of the fun that came with that, right? I mean, that was a very memorable year for the Oscars, basically, for better or worse.
Yeah, especially because the prior year there were all these accusations that the Oscars weren't representing minorities, right?
Yeah.
That they
Exactly,
weren't.
and so can we talk about that on a broader scale? I mean, so Hollywood has its issues. There's all sorts of allegations across Hollywood with the production companies, with the people that run them, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the list just goes on. But I think what we've seen in the last few years from the Oscars specifically is there's been something of an attempt to. I think they're trying to rectify it, but it almost seems like they're trying to wash it away in a lot of ways. When Parasite won last year, it really felt like they almost did it to, and I think it was probably the best film of the year, but still somehow I felt that they were kind of saying like, well, see, look, we did it, like, here you go, now you can't say that about us anymore. And then come to this year, Minari, a movie that is made by an American production company, is about 50-50 in English, but because of the heavy use of Korean, gets thrown into the foreign language film category. I find that weird. So this movie is nominated for Best Foreign Language Film rather
Yeah.
than being with the quote unquote American films.
Yeah, and it's starring a Korean American actor, right? Steven Yeun.
Yeah.
Another thing is it's not just that they have like stars or the language that's foreign. I mean, they have people like up and down, like who directed it, who produced it, who wrote it. Obviously, other people that are starring in it. They're all Korean. So I don't know how like these rules are set for what constitutes a foreign language film. I'm pretty sure some of the like the back end people also have to be or must also reflect that foreign language or something. I'm not sure,
Okay.
but it can't just be like,
It can't just be the language.
actually I'm not sure, man, because Roma won best foreign language, and I don't know, that was a Mexican director.
There is an issue here though, right? With I mean, what the Academy is deeming domestic versus foreign, and I don't know
Yeah.
a good answer to this because I feel like it used to be just called the best foreign film category, and at some point it got changed to the foreign language film. I may be making that up in my memory, but doing it by what language it's in seems problematic because that says like, okay, if you have elements of a movie that come from another culture, then suddenly it belongs somewhere else when that's kind of that should be the
Yeah.
opposite of what the USA is, right? We're very much a culture of import of other cultures. On the other hand, if they just say, okay, where was the movie made? I can see why that might be problematic as well because they want to, movies are filmed in different locations. They're filmed with, different people involved because, you want to get talent from all over the world. You don't want to limit it and, be thinking about where you're going to be categorized based on who's working on the film and stuff. So I don't know that there's a good answer to it, but this does seem just odd and misplaced.
Sure. I'm wondering if it can both qualify for that foreign film award or foreign language award as well as the general award. Are they?
Yeah, so both Parasite and Roma did qualify for both. That's why I don't think the other categories they're no longer restricted to just, domestic US movies.
Okay.
Looks like this movie was initially released at the Sundance Film Festival last year, January 2020. Due to whatever reasons, they did not release it throughout the year, most likely the pandemic. But then they're releasing it now because, like Fahad said earlier, that they want to be, recognized for this year's award seasons, which is for 2020 films.
Yeah. But Yusuf, I generally agreed with your point. If a movie contains, especially this movie is very American, right? It talks about the American dream and everything. It feels odd for it to be categorized for a foreign language film.
Yeah, I would argue that the experience in this movie is a very American experience and not an experience that, that might apply to many other countries.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I do want to correct myself, because I don't know for a fact that, for example, like the best actor and best actress categories are barred to foreign language films. So I'm not sure for the Academy. For the Golden Globe specifically, this film
Okay.
was ineligible for Best Picture because it was categorized in the foreign language film category. And I think it does affect the other awards, such as the acting awards and all of that as well, for the same reason. And so, I think it's a bigger deal for certain awards than it is for others. So, sorry, Academy. I don't feel like I should need to apologize to you guys, but yeah, maybe they're not kind of the big baddies here. There's other awards that are also very prestigious. Golden Globes, Screen Actors Guild, they all have their own standards, and so it may be a bigger problem for some of the others. But yeah, like there does seem to be some controversy around this movie already for that reason.
Interesting, yeah.
And it should not take away from the movie itself. You guys want to talk about our scores?
Sure.
That we gave it.
Let's do it.
All right, for narrative, I gave it a 75.
80.
70.
All right. Writing, I gave it an 80.
75.
75.
Nice.
Acting, I gave it an 85.
90.
80.
Themes, I gave it a 90.
85.
85.
I like
wow.
the agreement so far.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen very often.
And aesthetics, I gave it a 70.
90.
Wow. Big disparity here. I gave it an 85.
Okay.
Yeah. Looks like we're more or less in agreement on a lot of the elements of the film and how well it was presented and how well it was executed, except for aesthetics. I guess I didn't see too much in there, as much as you guys at least. We'll get into that now.
Yeah. Can we start off? Can you just give me our overall tallies for each of us? I just want to know.
So it actually comes out to both, for me and Fahad, an 80, and for Yusuf it comes out to an 84.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So we're really close, and we're all pretty positive on this movie.
Yeah, we're at least average on this movie and pretty good on most of the other elements.
Right. Yeah. I think in fact, I would say I think all of us are above average on pretty much every category, except for you, Faraz. For aesthetics, you think it's just exactly average, basically, right?
Yeah, and Fahad thinks the narrative is exactly average.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, interesting. So, can we start off with just a brief summary of the plot here?
Yeah. So we have a Korean American family.
The Yi family.
The Yi family. Yeah. So you have the father who's played by Stephen Yoon. His name is Jacob. You got the mother who's Monica, played by Yeri Han. You have a young son played by Alan Kim. Name is David in the film, and then you have the daughter Anne, who's played by Noel Cho. These guys are at least the parents are immigrants from Korea. The kids, we assume, are born in the U.S. If not born in the U.S., like came at a very young age. They used to live in California, and the father, after working for, I think that he says 10 years as a chicken, like they basically separate chickens by sex, like when they're chicks, like when they're really tiny. After saving up money, he decides to buy like 50 acres of land in Arkansas and start a farm because he wants to be able to grow Korean vegetables or Korean produce in general, because he sees the need out in California where, I don't know, like 50,000 Koreans are moving in every year and they don't have access to the ingredients that they would want to, make their Korean food. So he sees an opportunity to go out to Arkansas, start farming that stuff. And obviously this is where like the conflicts come in because they're immigrants. They're in a very foreign place. They're kind of isolated, living on a farm. And the wife, Monica, she's not too ecstatic about it. And
she's unhappy from the start, right?
Yeah, she's unhappy from the second she sees the trailer house.
Yeah, and the son David also has like this heart condition. So I mean, there are the typical kind of just familial worries and stresses, and then they're being plopped, in the middle of rural Arkansas to start this movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the general gist of it. But yeah, what Yusuf mentioned is very important. The son, David, has a heart condition, and that's like something that obviously worries the mom a lot. She's like, hey, look, the nearest hospital is an hour away. Like, what if something happens? And they both go to work, and they're doing the same thing that they were doing in California, which is separating the chicks by sex. And to help raise the kids or watch the kids, they bring over Monica's mom, so the grandmother, to Arkansas to help babysit the kids.
Yeah. I like the way the film starts, right? It starts with them moving to Arkansas. It doesn't show their previous life in California. And then as the characters talk it out, you discover the reasons why they moved, right? The father was tired of looking at chicken butts, as he puts it, and he wanted a slice of the American dream. The mom was convinced to move out there, unsure of what the exact reasons Jacob wanted to move out there, right? He didn't explain to her that he wanted to start that full-fledged farm.
Yeah, that was a little like, it was a little clouded because she seemed surprised by every move that was happening. Like, oh, you want a farm? Like, wait, how did you guys not talk about this beforehand?
Right. Yeah, we had to discover with her because Fahad, it's like you get no background. We show up in Arkansas with them, right? So that was just very interesting. But yeah, his plan is to start this farm, and that's going to be, you know, his way out of, you know, the 9-to-5 life, right? Some of us invest in
GameStop,
you know, crypto. Yeah, GameStop and crypto. Some of us start farms or gardens, as Jacob would call it, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess for the majority of this movie, we kind of just watch him trying to, you know, get this farm set up, going through kind of the normal struggles. Where do we pull water from? You know, how do we tend to the crops regularly? What are the expenses going to be? And at the same time, we're watching these kids just try to assimilate in this life. And, you know, more so it seems almost that they're Americans and they're having to assimilate to their Korean grandmother, which I felt was interesting. But that's probably the majority of the movie, right? That's kind of the big chunk of the movie that we're watching. We're watching kind of just this family just, you know, sticking it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the story or the movie in general gets much more interesting once the grandma arrives. One, she's a very eccentric character. She's hilarious, and then it kind of accentuates the conflicts between the, like, you know, a typical immigrant family that they might come across. She pokes fun at the kids at how American they are, and then the kids are all like, well, she has that Korea smell. And then I like how Anne's like telling David, you've never even been to Korea, you don't know what that smell is. But like it's stuff that, I mean, all of us are from immigrant families. Like, I'm sure like it's stuff that reminded us all of, like, you know, our own experiences in some way. And I think that's something A24 productions do very well. Small cast of characters, there's not too many, and even if you're not, like, we're obviously not Korean, we aren't farmers, but we can still like relate to like aspects of the different characters. And I mean, that's where I thought the narrative was very engaging and it was fun.
Right. The movie is very universal, right? The themes that it presents are universal. It's specific, and yet it works for everyone.
Yeah.
Just to wrap up the plot, then, you know, things come to a head when things work out, right? David, it turns out his heart condition is healing itself. You know, the hole in his heart is closing up, and they find a Korean grocer who wants to buy Jacob's vegetables, but it comes at the wrong point because I think Monica has just realized that Jacob is more invested in his own success than in the family's success. And of course, when they get back to the farm after the visit to the hospital and the grocery store, it seems that the grandmother, after, you know, she had suffered a stroke earlier, she's struggling a little bit. She accidentally set the barn on fire, and all the produce is burning. And so, you know, that dream is kind of dead. But kind of the last few scenes we get of the family, they've just got each other, and it seems like that's enough. And the Minari, the Minari it's a plant that was, you know,
it was planted along the river banks, right?
Along the river, right? By the grandmother, not part of the farm whatsoever, but it seems like that's what they've got, and it's grown well, and they've got something that can, you know, that can get them moving and keep them going, you know, with this plan.
Yeah. In Minari, it seems to be like that resilient metaphor, right? The roots are in the ground already, and it didn't go up in fire like the rest of the plants did.
It gets to a question, obviously, that I had. What did the Minari truly represent?
I think it represented that the family has placed down roots in this community and that they're going to stay.
So yeah, same thing. I kind of thought, well, Minari is a kind of plant, because the way the grandma brings it up, she's like, as long as you find the right spot for it, it'll grow on its own. And that's exactly what I also thought, Fahad. So that is representing that they found a spot that is right for them, and they will persevere because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was interesting that the scene right before they get back to the farm, where Monica and Jacob are kind of having their argument, and she says something along the lines of like, you still think this is about money, that money's going to save us, but we can't save ourselves. And that's her reason for wanting to go back to California. But I just thought it was ironic fashion. That's kind of the perfect reason why they're going to stay, because Monica wants to go back and have the life that she knew there, but it seems like if they're together, if they're here, they need very little to survive, and they can survive and take root where they are, just like the Minari does. So
Yeah.
I thought that was very fitting, that like they're gonna make it, and it's because of the reasons that Monica said. Not she wanted to leave, but for those very reasons is why they're going to make it and they're going to stay there.
Yeah.
Well said. Yeah.
Did you guys feel that the film was kind of anticlimactic, right? With the fire, I would have expected something more resulting to occur after that fire, right? Like he's not able to make some payments, and we see the farm collapse or something, or there didn't seem to be anything consequential arising from it.
Yeah, I guess the only thing you can conclude is that he probably lost that customer he had made in Oklahoma City, right? And like Yusuf said, they have to restart by just relying on selling Minari. I know what you mean. Like I thought I was getting worried when he was in the barn and trying to save as much produce as he could that the worst case scenario happens and he doesn't make it out of there, but he does. And I mean, I'm kind of glad he did. That would have been too harsh of an ending.
Or if Monica didn't make it out, right?
Or if Monica didn't.
There is that moment where he's, he stops with the produce and he's like, where is my wife? And he's looking around, he's calling for her, and he can't find her for a few seconds, right? And then eventually, he finds her and gets her out of there. But yeah, we had that like scare for a moment that there's going to be something more consequential, and it doesn't come. But somehow, I think that was satisfying to me, because I think it would have taken the shine off of like the entire film if there's like this big consequential moment that just it ruins like kind of the low-key nature of this entire film, you know what I mean? So I almost felt like the way that they did that was more fitting.
I would say that scene, I mean, it plays well for like the rest of the movie in how Monica really does get that Jacob is trying to succeed with the farm, like for the purposes of providing for the family. Like it is somewhat selfish that it's his dream and he wants to move forward like that, being a farmer and doing this specific business. But she understands that he wants to succeed for the sake of the family as well. So she goes in after him, and she doesn't just tell him to like, leave the produce and like pull him out. She helps him like save that produce or save whatever they can. And then eventually you get, Jacob understanding like, this isn't worth it. What are we doing in here? We got to get out. He's like looking for his wife and gets her out. So like, I don't know. It kind of sums up what they both really felt internally, but maybe weren't outwardly showing it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Question though, did they save the produce or did they just end up giving it? He was moving it from one place to another inside the barn, it felt like. And then
like towards the front, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters. Like,
it doesn't matter,
if
right?
it's, even if they saved it, like, maybe it's not even like edible.
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
all burned and charred.
Yeah, it's gonna be smoked at the best, right? So, I think I want to make a distinction between a movie like this where, or let's say another movie with a very simple narrative where not much happens, and a movie like this where I think a lot happens, but they don't bother to show you every single thing that happened. You kind of have to fill in the gaps a little bit. So for us, as you said, I think the only conclusion you can come to is that, that Korean grocery store that was buying his produce, that deal's off, right? Because they said bring us stuff next week. He's not going to be able to grow anything by the next week. And so to a degree, like seeing him, not be able to, deliver on the groceries or not be able to make some payments for bills or something like that, I feel like that would have taken the air out of the ending, because you can assume those things happen, but you don't need to take the time to see it on screen. So I think almost just seeing him, picking at the Minari and saying like, well, at least this is good. We can do something with this. That was like satisfying to me. I don't even actually want to see like another Korean grocery, owner come to the farm and say, hey, I need a lot of Minari. Do you have any Minari? Oh my God, I'll pay you $1 million for that Minari. It looks like, something like that would have felt cheap too. But like right where they left it, it's like the perfect point where you can fill in the blanks. You can, as I like to do, you can kind of continue the movie in your head for a little while as the credits roll, and you can logically see where things are going, but they don't need to play it out for you.
Sure. I especially like that scene, that one scene where they're all sleeping together on the floor of the trailer.
And I think that, it shows exactly what Yusuf was saying, that really all they need now is like each other. They've come to realize that. I mean, I think they always knew that, but obviously faced with the situation that they were faced with, it's just like a fitting ending, really.
Yeah. And there's a lot of little details that I liked throughout as well. One thing that's just coming to mind right now is when Monica and Jacob are fighting earlier on in the movie. Anne and David go into the other room and they make paper planes. And Anne's kind of instructing him, you have to write the letters bigger on the paper plane, because where they're writing "don't fight" on the plane, and then they go outside the door and they start throwing them at their parents. Like those little things, like the kids don't know what to do, but they know they should be doing something. I really liked those little details for some reason.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, and another thing I really liked is the grandma. That whole the chemistry with the kids, her role within the family, how she's super laid back. She lets the kids be kids. At the same time, she's like, David's problem with her is that she's not like your typical American grandma that he thinks a grandma should be. Like, she's not baking him cookies. She doesn't cook. The interactions between the kids and the grandma, like, that was great. With the Mountain Dew, like those little things, that was awesome.
Yeah, I really like the humor there, right? With the Mountain Dew. She's calling it Mountain Dew after her granddaughter explained to her that this water's collected from the mountains. I like how nobody corrected that, and she's just like sipping away the sugary drink. It almost felt like a Mountain Dew commercial or product placement.
Probably was.
Yeah.
The old school glass bottles of Mountain Dew, yeah. Maybe. I think we're already talking about the writing a little bit here. So let's get into that more. What did you guys think of the writing overall? I mean, I was at a 75, so I think I'm probably closer to average.
Yeah, I wanted to give writing a little more, but again, with the whole foreign language stuff, I mean, when we're reading subtitles for the Korean part, I didn't go as high, but I went 80 because I thought it was like very engaging, and I just thought that especially the conversations that Monica and Jacob were having were very, very well written. Like, in terms of describing, what the core issue is, like, why there is this emotional disconnect, despite them clearly, loving each other very much, but still having that disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
It was conveyed very well.
We get that mostly in that hospital scene, and then that scene outside the grocery store, right?
Yeah.
There was something about that scene that stuck with me.
Which one?
The one outside the grocery store.
Okay.
Because like it just emotionally, I think at that point in the movie where I was at was like, you just come up, like things worked out. They've got a buyer for the produce. David's gonna be okay. His health is improving. Monica is like, she's very silent for pretty much that entire stretch of the movie. And so I guess I didn't see it coming, but I probably should have seen it coming. She's very unhappy because of that last conversation they had before the doctor called them in to give them the good news. That scene outside the grocery store where she's saying like, the last thing you told me right then was that you were choosing the farm over your family. That could have very easily been a shouting match. That scene, I think a lot of directors would have done that scene as this loud shouting match outside of the Korean, grocery store. They didn't do that here. She is very calm. She's very collected, and she's disappointed. You know what I mean? They had their shouting match earlier in the movie. It's not that they don't do that, but in that moment, her thoughts were collected, and she just, she very calmly explains to him what the problem is because he doesn't see it himself. I just thought that was a very good choice there because, I could have seen that being like a super dramatic scene, but I was more impressed with the dialogue and the acting too in that scene because of how they portrayed it.
Yeah.
So this gets into like how one plays off the other, like whether the writing was really well written or the acting was so good that it amplified the writing to another level. But yeah, that scene was like Monica, the way she is mostly calm even when she gets upset, but like Yusuf said, Jacob has just told him like, you guys can go back to California. I'm gonna stay here with the farm. I started it. Even if I fail, I have to see it through, like, etc. Right? And this obviously disappoints Monica a lot. That's why they have that conversation outside of the grocery store. But the performance there as well was like spot on.
Mm-hmm.
That you could see the hurt in her face.
Yeah. Have you guys seen that movie Revolutionary Road?
I have not.
No.
No. Oh, okay. Then there's no use bringing this up. Yeah.
No, okay, fine. I've seen it. Yeah. What about it?
Oh, it's a similar movie. It's a drama about marital problems. In that movie, the characters just go overboard in terms of shouting matches and everything. Whereas this movie, it's just like everything's very understated.
Yeah, and in this movie, they actually mention, or like, both the grandma talks about how, I think the grandma and someone else, like, we just fight over, or you guys fight over anything, like any little thing, no matter how petty or small it is. And I was like, not really. I mean, she's upset about like having to move to Arkansas and like having to upend her life and being totally alone in like a new place. So
Yeah, but
like, they're not
grandma's
fighting over.
grandma's from old world, right? The couples just get along. no
Yeah,
matter
I
what.
felt like that was immigrant mentality, where they went through so much to set up their children and get a better life that like even the things that are like massive life changes just seem like things that you should be
Like
just
trivial.
walking over. Yeah, exactly. It's just like what are you arguing about? You're gonna live in California or Arkansas? Like what's the big deal? Like so I feel like that was kind of the immigrant mentality coming through there.
Yeah, perhaps.
I think they stayed true to that very well with the writing as well. I thought the writing was very delicate and like just making sure that they showed the unique perspective of those kids, and the way that they look at their parents, the way that they look at their grandmother. I don't know if you felt this way, but I also think it would have been very easy when they're having these scenes in this movie interacting with the community to throw in kind of subtle racism and things like that coming from. I didn't get any of that in this movie, and that was almost
Yeah.
refreshing in a way because we've just seen that so many times. Instead, what we get is the way that the way you get it actually is that the kids, especially David, he thinks he's more American than he does think he's Korean, even though he speaks Korean very fluently and like is he's clearly very Korean influenced. But you said earlier, he says the thing about his grandmother smelling like Korea. He tells her multiple times that you're not being like a grandma, like you're not acting like a grandma, because his idea of a grandma is like the American grandma who just bakes cookies and smells of fresh linen or whatever, right? So like he's just got that idea in his head. So this is another thing where Fahad, you said we don't get anything about their background in California. That's what we get. We get that David clearly has been influenced to see things a certain way, and now his Korean culture is seeming other to him in a lot of ways. So I thought that was a clever kind of reversal to show the same kind of issues that come up with different cultures intermingling. That is kind of a form of racism that we get, where kind of I think I felt like that as a kid, where I grew up with so many friends who were mostly Caucasian, and so you get a lot of ideas like, why is my family not like that? So that's kind of where we get to see it. We get to see it from David reacting to the way that his parents, the way his grandma's behaving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that too. Yeah, the sources of conflict were not outside the house; it was inside.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, there was some stereotypical, like, not really racist, but
Just naive.
naive, innocent ignorance by the kids, right? When that girl comes up to Anne and she's like, "Stop me when I say something in your language."
Oh yeah. Oh, never mind. I totally forgot about that scene.
And then the boy is like, "Hey, why is your face so flat?"
I can't believe what I said now. Oh my god. I totally I blanked
But
on those scenes.
those are kids.
Yeah, exactly. And you can tell that they're not coming from like a place of hate at all, because like they just move on to like the next topic or something, right?
Right. Like it's just a comment. He's like, "Why is your face so flat?" And he's like, "It's not." And then he's like, "Anyway, so my name's whatever. What's your name?" Like it's like it's over after that. Like that's all he had to say, and that was the entire context of it. To a degree, children are just naturally they're naturally prejudiced, right? Because like you just anything that doesn't look exactly like you or feel exactly like what you've been taught like you're suddenly like, why is it that way, right? So the kids do that
Yeah.
perfectly, but they don't stick on it. You're exactly right there.
But yeah, I mean, you got into a little bit of the general themes. I mean, I think we've been talking about the overall themes throughout this discussion, but the immigrant family trying to assimilate, I think that's portrayed pretty well through Monica, because she seems to be someone, you know, who's very much involved in the community. She wants like to start a Korean church in Arkansas because she's feeling lonely, obviously,
Hmm.
and she's the one who not encourages, but like, because it's eventually Jacob that's like, hey, we'll go to church, but it's because he knows that Monica wants to interact with people in the community and like have a social life. And then the whole conflict that a immigrant kid would have between cultures, you know, growing up in one culture and then having another culture at home. And then that's obviously a little more accelerated when you have the grandma move in. Yeah, I just think a lot of those themes were executed very subtly, and like nothing was in your face, and obviously relatable.
I would agree. Can we talk about kind of what they're trying to say about the American dream here? What did you guys like take away from that?
That it requires some selfishness.
That it
Mm.
requires some risk, right? Jacob risked the financial stability of the family, moving out of California, taking on loans and everything, buying a plot of land without knowing what it was exactly, but just
Good old capitalism. That's the American dream.
yeah. But it's about stubbornness. It's about seeing your vision through.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, like there to a degree, like at some point you have to draw the line in this movie between what is kind of the American influence and what is the immigrant influence, I guess, right? Or like kind of I think I placed a lot of his ability to persevere. I placed that kind of with his background and his culture more because he's very stern to point that out, especially early on. There's another example where all we get from him is him saying that this is why Koreans are better than Americans. He's like, we're smart. We're not dumb enough to just, pay money for something that we can do ourselves. That ends up shooting him in the foot, right? Because he decides he's not going to pay for the guy to install the well. He's just going to dig it up himself, and he digs up in a poor spot, obviously. But yeah, like basically, there's a lot of different characteristics that are playing into his mentality and how things play out. Persevering is obviously a good one, but the way that he risks everything is a bad one for what he's trying to accomplish, or at least what he portrays he's trying to accomplish, right? Because in the end, like you said, it is more about selfishness or like wanting to see individual success than it is about the good of the community. Or I shouldn't say the good of the community, but I mean just a communal mindset, because in his case it's the family that he just kind of is putting on the back burner in order to succeed with his farm, right? So I thought that
Yeah.
was kind of just an interesting contrast that they showed. I guess it's just it was interesting to see like where does the American dream stop and where does like being content with what you have, where is the line between those two things?
Yeah, like he has that practical mindset where he's like, I'm gonna, be efficient with what I do. I'm not gonna have additional costs that I don't need, and that seems to be coming from, a very immigrant point of view where, you try to make the most of that situation that you're in. But the aspiration side of, I'm gonna build this 50-acre farm and I'm gonna, sell produce to these big cities, like I feel like that's where like the American dream comes in, and he's trying to achieve something that requires a lot of sacrifice, a lot of risk, and that sacrifice is basically the potential detriment of his family life.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I think in a lot of ways, this movie was trying to say that the American dream it ain't all that, or at least that it's not what we're always told that it is, because to a degree, his American success comes when he realizes like, okay, we're not gonna be rich, and I'm not gonna get to quit my day job, but we're gonna be okay.
Yeah, and it's also that one person's American dream doesn't translate to someone else's.
Yeah.
Like clearly his wife has a totally different idea of what an American dream is. Her idea is living in a city,
Hmm.
being around people of her community. Like you have the whole city versus rural like situation going on too. Like you have two different people. Jacob just doesn't seem to be a very sociable person, right? He doesn't want to even like the one hand that he hires, Paul, it's very it's just the work relationship and that's it. In a small town like that, You know, like having Paul come over. He's the first guest that they ever have in the house. And when Paul decides to help them out with some, I guess, like spreading holy water throughout the house to take out demons, Jacob's like, what are you telling him? Like, are you opening up to him? Would you tell him? Why is he here still? Like, you know, he's clearly a private person. He wants to be on his own, and Monica doesn't want that. She wants to be part of the community. Because she even says, like, why don't we move to another town in Arkansas? So, like, you know, she's trying to compromise here that has more people, but you can only get like 5 acres of land, not 50.
Yeah, and he says, 5 acres is the hobby. That's not what I'm trying to do. That was very interesting just overall because Paul is constantly kind of making advances to try to be more friendly while they're working, and Jacob is obviously more kind of like, okay, get back to work now type of guy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even early on in the movie, Jacob says to Monica, he says, "It must be hard for you here, right? You don't have any friends here." And my immediate thought was like, it was just interesting that he didn't say, it's hard for us here because we don't have friends. He says it's hard for you because you don't have friends. Because to him, that's not really a consideration because he doesn't feel that he needs that internally.
Brilliant observation. Yeah, I didn't pick that up. Yeah, I guess he embodies that independent spirit, right?
Yeah, so something that aligns very well with like what the American dream is.
And there's kind of some opposing symbolism in the movie I felt with the money. Do you guys remember? I think it's early on, probably right after can you guys help me out? There's
Sure.
a scene where he goes into the drawer and he hides
Stashes
some money there.
Yeah.
What was that money from?
I think he got a loan from the bank and he paid off for the tractor. I think that was the remaining money from the loan.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So that drawer ends up playing a big role. We never like get to see what's in the drawer beyond that one scene. So obviously that's just kind of where he stashes his money. But at a later point in the movie, David accidentally pulls out the drawer and hurts his foot, right? And then the grandmother kind of becomes, after she has her stroke, she kind of becomes obsessed with the drawer, and she keeps pointing at it and saying there's something there. That's kind of the reason they bring Paul in, because cleanse the house, because there's like some sort of spirit or some sort of evil spirit there, right? Which they kind of attribute to like, oh, the previous owner, he committed suicide on this land, so it's like cursed land or whatever. There's a lot of talk about that. But what were they trying to say about? I just felt like they were making a connection between kind of the money that was stashed there and kind of the, just the general
source of conflict.
Yeah.
Right. That money with the family's lack of financial stability, that it was causing an issue. And yeah, it was. They had their water cut off. Monica's feeling like she's not going to be able to provide, or that the family's not going to leave anything for their children. And she's especially worried about David's heart condition, right? And the financial burden that will entail. And yeah, money's definitely a big concern for everyone in this movie.
Yeah, I thought that was nice. Just a conflicting point of view against kind of the American dream aspirational sentiments that were here, right? So you see those two things fighting constantly.
Mm-hmm.
What did you guys make of Paul's character in general? Because I thought he was like a creepy dude that was gonna cause some problems for the family.
Oh, he was
I was
he was a town's Jesus freak. He was just the lovable dude.
Lovable?
The kids were flipping him off as the church bus drove by.
Yeah.
I mean, so I have a lot to say on that character, actually, or maybe not a lot, but I have a lot of questions instead. It's just
Same.
right. Like, first of all, I didn't love the acting. Out of all the acting, I think that's the one character I didn't really like, because there was something weird about it. I mean, it seemed more over the top than everyone else's, I guess. Perhaps that's just a function of his character, and at the same time, I felt like they were trying to symbolize something with him that I wasn't quite picking up on or something, because he quite literally carries a huge cross and walks down the road, and he says, "This is my church. This is what I do on Sundays." So I almost just felt like there was more that was supposed to be represented by him that I wasn't catching or something.
Do you guys remember where he refused the cigarettes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
On the farm, right? I think he's a former
and he
addict.
Spazzes out.
Yeah, he spazzes out. I think he's a former addict recovering, and him carrying the cross across that street, that was his, I guess, atonement for his sinful ways before. That's what he was trying to accomplish at least. And he's just someone who's turned to religion and he's sticking with it, right? I don't know. What else is there to make of it?
Nothing. I guess just him carrying that literal huge cross. It seems primed for some sort of
Explanation.
symbolic gesture or something. Yeah. And
maybe there's something in Christian theology and we're not picking it up.
yeah, maybe. I mean, quite. I guess if you just take the idea of bearing a cross, right? I mean, he has a burden on him, right? And I think that is understandable, right? Like he is a person who he's been through some stuff, right? And there's no doubt from the way that character played was portrayed. That guy has been through a lot, and it hasn't all been.
Yeah, he's a veteran too, right? Because he says he was in the Korean War.
Yeah, exactly. So we know that he's just struggled, and it seems like he's still struggling. And Jacob's the only guy who actually helps him, right? And the only and Jacob is a guy who is not very personable, right? So him doing the minimum of just saying, hey, "I'll pay you to do a little bit of work that's actually going to be to my benefit." That kind of, it seems like that is a relief to Paul. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point because Paul's the one who offers himself as, a help. He's like, hey, I'm good at this. I can do a work. And initially Jacob is like, I don't need it, but comes around to, get help from him.
Right. And then I also have to point out, Paul doesn't go to church. Or, like his character he's the most religious character we see outside of like the pastor, right? He's constantly just, preaching out loud when he's talking. He doesn't go to church, and the kids make fun of him on the bus. I mean, it seems like he's a person that's been ostracized by the community, and it takes this Korean family to give him any sort, any sense of community, because well, why wouldn't he go to church otherwise, right? And I think one of the kids even says after they're flipping him off or whatever, and he says something about my dad said about him this, that, right? So we get a little bit of context that people talk about him, and they're not really the community that's there outside of the Yi family. It's not really something that Paul has been able to rely on because he's kind of creating everything for himself. He has his own version of church. He does all these things. So I thought there's probably even more there to unpack. Maybe it's just trying to say that like it kind of takes an outsider to kind of to see something from a different perspective and provide he provides aid for Paul that he wasn't getting from the local community.
Yeah, I think you can pull from it that no matter who you are, you could still be outcasted in a community. So you would think that a family like the Yees, immigrant family, recently moved into town, they don't know anyone, that they would be the ones that would be like on the outside, and they are. But then they realize there's someone else in the town, like Paul, who's also on the outside, despite him being from that town his entire life. You could take that from it, that people on the outside are able to see each other.
Yeah, definitely.
You guys liked aesthetics a decent amount here.
Yeah.
I didn't like either visually or sound. Nothing caught my eye, I guess, or my ears.
Visually, I love the movie. I love the atmospheric nature shots, right? It reminded me of like Terrence Malick movies.
I was just gonna say that.
Did it evoke the same thing for you, like Thin Red Line?
I mean, like basically
Badlands?
looking up in the trees and the wind blowing in the trees, the breeze happening, shots of fields and people walking in it. I guess
and
so.
The soft focus, right? It evoked like a dreamy quality.
What can you give me some like what is let's talk about who Terrence Malick is and what he's done.
Sure. Terrence Malick, he's directed. Let's see.
The Thin Red Line, which was one of the first films that we did.
Yeah.
I think
he did Tree of Life.
Badlands, which takes place in a rural area. It was a 1973 movie with Sissy Spacek and Martin Sheen, and that movie had a lot of like open country in it.
So what about these shots kind of reminded you of that? Just kind of the focus on the nature.
Just the feel, the way the camera just goes about like observing things without having any point to it, I guess.
Yeah.
So like still shots with the scenery, having movement, but not like
it's like
not sudden movement, but like smooth, calm.
It's like visual poetry.
Oh wow, visual poetry. Damn, he's old. 1943. I didn't realize he was that old.
Yusuf, are you not familiar with him at all?
I mean, just vaguely familiar. Not enough to recognize his
Signature shots or whatever.
yeah, his
Okay.
cinematography style. Yeah, so that's you can speak to more than I can. So I thought that that's interesting though, because I definitely noticed. Obviously, there's a heavy emphasis on those shots. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I generally liked that. I liked a lot of the there was a lot of close up shots that kind of got you personal with the characters. One scene that is
Yeah.
sticking out to me right now
Yeah.
is back in the hospital when they're waiting for the doctor to call them in.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, especially when you know what follows in that conversation about the fact that Jacob has decided he's going to stay and he's going to send his family back to California. They do a good job of having Monica in the foreground, Jacob in the background, but in a in a linear point of view, they are like inches apart. Like Jacob's nose is like an inch away from Monica's ear, but he's actually sitting way further down on the bench than she is. So there's quite a lot more space between them than it may appear at first, right? So you can kind of you just like shots like that. Just they showed kind of the distance between them, even though like they're chugging along, they're just trying to make things work, but like they're really not getting along. That's the climax of their disagreement, right? So I thought there was a couple shots that were just really well crafted like that. Otherwise, I mean, I guess maybe for us, what did you not like about it? Because I just don't think I found there was I don't find anything I disliked. Some things I liked and some things I didn't notice as much. Maybe you landed more in that camp.
Yeah, exactly. There's just stuff that didn't stand out to me. I mean, I'm thinking about a few shots. There was one in the trailer when Jacob he wants to punish David for having the grandma drink pee, and like the shot that they have looking up at them, like that was well shot. I mean, the framing was nice on that, but other than that, like I really didn't. I don't know those nature shots for Haz.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan. I just feel like just set a camera down during the golden hour and slow it down a little bit, like in post process, and boom, you have like a very calm, nice shot.
Same.
Like I don't think it's that
Okay.
impressive. If anything, I think it was frequently used to slow down the mood of the movie. So like when things would ratchet up, I feel like that was brought in to slow it down a little bit, let you catch up, and then it would move forward. It was like a transitional scene kind of thing.
Mm.
Nothing wrong with it. I mean, I gave it an average score. I'm just saying, like, I didn't notice anything that would make me want to go higher.
What'd you guys think of the score? Because for me, I really liked the composition of the score, but I thought it was a tad overused.
Really, I was gonna say it was probably so subtly used that I barely noticed it.
Really?
Oh,
Okay.
I noticed it. I think, and I think I'd agree with you. Maybe they could have used it a little bit less, but I liked it. It was very fitting. I mean, it has kind of like these Eastern notes to it, which is kind of
What's
perfect.
a major scene that had it?
Um,
Like, did any of the big scenes like have it, or did they rely on silence in those scenes?
Anything that had like heavy emotion, they relied on silence. It was more so used kind of. It was used in the introductory scenes when they're arriving. It was also used
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
closing. But like when emotions are high, I don't think they ever used it because it's not a fitting score for a scene like that.
Okay.
Also, when they're heading to the hospital for David's appointment,
Mm.
they're
Okay,
using it.
okay. So mainly like when they're like transitioning from setting to setting, right?
Right.
Like in the beginning when they're moving to the new place, when they're driving over to Oklahoma City. Yeah, I guess I remember it, but like I don't remember thinking too much about it. So I don't know if Fahad, you felt it was overused.
Just a tad. Yeah.
I
Okay.
can see why you say what you say, Faraz, about kind of the scenic shots. It feels a little bit like B-roll footage at times where they're
Exactly.
just like, oh, we need to fill this shot with something. What are we putting? And then they just like have these beautiful sceneries and let's throw them in, right? So sometimes, yeah, sometimes if you don't use it properly, it can feel a little bit like that. I don't think it bothered me particularly, but I can certainly see that point of view.
Like another thing I didn't like is, again, I shouldn't say I didn't like, but I wish they kind of showed the scale of like where they were.
It's 50 acres, like that's
Yeah, right.
huge.
And like you're seeing like two or three corners of it, and it's like give me like a drone shot or something. I don't know. Like they keep talking about, oh, the hospital is an hour away. Like what are we gonna do if this happens? Like you didn't get the scale of like how isolated they were through the setting.
Yeah. It's a good point you raise.
But yeah, I still thought it was Like it wouldn't. I didn't think anything was like distracting though. That it would take you out of the movie.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think that's a good baseline because like I think maybe I liked certain scenes here and there, and I mean I think no, actually, I think I liked a lot about it, to be honest. I think one thing we're discounting here also, if you watch at home when this drops on streaming platforms and you watch without headphones, you're going to lose a lot. You got to watch this in the theaters or with headphones in a quiet environment to get kind of the entire spectrum of the sound. I feel like even
Yeah.
all the shots indoors, you can kind of hear a lot of ambient noise from the nature, and like you're not going to be able to pick that up if if you're listening in even a slightly noisy environment. So, I mean, I just think there was a lot of detail going into the sound
Oh,
that
for
shouldn't be
sure.
overlooked. So,
Yeah, especially in that opening sequence where they're moving. As they're approaching closer to their trailer, the sound of the insects it slightly increases, and when they step outside their car, it's
Yeah.
like at its maximum. I thought
Yeah.
that was done well.
Even with all that, I mean, the movie is a generally quiet one. Even like when the like Monica and Jacob are arguing, and it's really their tone that gets like more stern and aggressive rather than the volume of their speech. Like they're not like truly yelling at the top of their lungs. So it's a generally quiet movie. So a quiet environment to watch it in is probably best. Like a movie theater or when it's on streaming services with headphones.
Yeah.
what do you guys think of the child actors in this movie? I got to point out, we just since we just did the Florida Project, which is also an A24 production. Don't know that that has anything to do with it, but I was quite impressed with Alan Kim, as well as the girl who played Anne,
Noel Cho.
Noelle Kate Cho. Yeah,
Yeah, I thought they were pretty good. Alan Kim, I think generally he was good, and then he kind of was great in a few scenes, especially when he was showing concern or fear when he overhears his mom saying that his heart could stop at any moment. And then when he had to when he was being funny with his grandma, that was also good too. So I thought he was actually great. They didn't really ask much from Noel Cho. Like Anne didn't have much of a role in this
Except
movie.
maybe rolling
Um,
her eyes in scenes.
yeah, yeah. But, I mean, like she just wasn't a big part of the story. So I mean, she was good in what she did.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you for us. Alan Kim was Alan Kim was great. Don't know about Noelle Cho. She wasn't given a big enough role to really make any determination.
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, I just think that when if you can even say that about a child actor, sometimes that's a compliment because well, I mean, what they do is like
It
very
is.
difficult. So like, I mean, she fit in perfectly to me. So like, I appreciate that very much. Alan Kim, of course, more so because he has to do much more, and all of it seemed really really believable. I mean, of course, the scene where he hands his grandmother a bowl of pee. I think that scene was a little bit over the top in terms of his acting, but like just minorly. So I'm being picky here. So I mean, that's why I gave this movie such a high rating for acting. I mean, I'm at a 90. Like
Yeah.
I thought that the kids were excellent. Everyone else was really good as well. But that's always like a huge plus to me.
Yeah, for sure. Because I feel like kid actors are very easy to be overly dramatic and take you out of a movie.
Yeah, and even the adults, you can say the same thing about them because what, like I said, especially that scene outside the grocery store, and across the movie, really overall, it's really easy to play angry couple with a lot of dramaticism, and they chose not to do that, but they still got everything across very well. So they hit all the right notes there for me.
Yeah. So overall, I mean, it's a pretty great movie.
I was looking at the Letterboxd movies recommended for 2020. This appeared 7th in terms of their rankings. It's pretty high up there.
Okay.
Nice.
For Korean movies, maybe we should talk about this a little.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
The Korean movies reputation in America, right? Think about, I mean, most people know about Parasite now.
Mhm.
I would say before that, it was, I don't know, there's a lot of like action or like Memories of a Murder, Old Boy.
Done by that same
Movies that
director,
are,
right? That was called the
yeah,
Revenge
and
Trilogy. Besides that, there was also The Burning. Do you remember that film?
yeah, The Burning. There's also Man from Nowhere. I mean, I would say most Korean movies that we are familiar with here in the United States are, either super intense, super dark, or or like a combination of a few things. But they're not like this kind of movie that we just watched. But then again, is this really a Korean movie? We had this discussion early on. I'm not sure if it is, but
I think we should say pretty definitively that it's not, right?
Yeah.
yeah, it's not exactly
because this is made for an American audience with with American culture being kind of the primary element of this movie. Yeah, let's just say, I mean, Korean culture is part of American culture, and that's why this movie has both. But yeah, it would just be disingenuous to call it a Korean movie, because that implies that it's made for an audience in Korea with all of their particularities in mind, which that describes the other movies you guys were just talking about, and they're different for that reason. Another movie I was thinking, Train to Busan. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's another movie that's kind of just very high octane, I guess, right? Or at least just adrenaline wise, it's much higher levels than a movie like this, which is so low key. I mean, yeah, I think slice of life film is kind of the right way to describe this movie. I wouldn't say that about any of the other movies that we were talking about. Even like Bong Joon-ho's films, who, Parasite is one, but even if you know his other films, which a lot of people do, they're not slice of life films. They're like very, deep in terms of kind of their political and social commentary and all of that. So those are all very different movies.
It doesn't fall in. Basically, my point is, if you're coming in thinking that this is a Korean film, it's not. I think we've clearly defined why it's not, and it's not gonna have the same type of vibe or feel that the Korean films that you are familiar with. Obviously, we're talking here about a U.S. audience.
I think that's right. I had one last thought, which is just kind of random, but you remember that scene where David and Jacob are standing outside the factory, and he looks up at like the smokestack, and he's like, "What's going on over there?" And he says, "That's where we burn all of the male chicks because they don't have any use. They can't lay eggs, and they can't be eaten."
And then he tells his son
that he tells his son, right?
Yeah, he tells his son that you better find a way to contribute, right? Something along those lines.
That's him.
Not you, but like we. Yeah. Because he includes himself in that.
I think he feels pretty worthless in that moment, and that's kind of obviously what's driving his whole thing throughout this movie. But I just thought of that. That's pretty deep. Do they really do that to male chicks? Damn.
Yeah, I have no idea, man. Wait, male chicks, you can't eat them?
I guess you can't eat them. They don't taste as good or something. No, I mean I'm assuming they grow them and then they slaughter them, but I guess they're not good for that either. They're not good for chicken.
I have no idea, man. But yeah, I mean that's a great point though, Yusuf. It's really, really what Jacob is. He's really trying to provide for his family, not understanding that the drive that he has is pulling him further and further away from his family.
It's about self-worth, right? Like he wants to provide for his family because that will give him self-worth.
Exactly, yeah.
It's kind of so like providing for the family is kind of the secondary goal there, but yeah, just cool. Anyways, prayers up to the male chicks and Farhan.
Who is also male chick.
In the figurative sense.
No, literal.
I don't even know what that means.
All right.
I don't know either. I'm just saying it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this production of The Twice Over. If you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing and sharing it with a friend. Want to see what your tally is? Check out thetwiceover.com. All the movies we've done are listed there, as well as what we're watching for the current week. Follow us at The Twice Over on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, where you can leave us any suggestions, feedback, or comments. And if you're about it, you can also support us on Patreon. The music you hear on this podcast is from Amerigo Gazaway. You can find his work on Bandcamp and Spotify.